There's a country with a population of 50. Not 50,000. Not 5,000. 50. From a nation that spans all four hemispheres but barely exists on land, to an island that mined itself into oblivion. These are the 10 countries you've never heard of, and the stories behind them are stranger than fiction. Number 10. Comoros. Somewhere between Madagascar and the east coast of Africa, there's an archipelago that most people couldn't find on a map. The Comoros consists of 4 volcanic islands with a combined population of around 900,000, smaller than most mid-sized cities. But this tiny nation has a global secret. Comoros produces 80% of the world's ylang ylang, the essential oil used in Chanel No. 5, Dior, and nearly every luxury perfume on the planet. A $300 bottle of perfume likely contains essence from a flower picked by a Comorian farmer earning $2 a day. The country has experienced more than 20 coups or attempted coups since independence in 1975, one of the highest rates of political instability anywhere. One island, Anjouan, has tried to break away and rejoin France multiple times. Despite the chaos, the natural beauty is staggering. Active volcanoes, pristine coral reefs, and the coelacanth, a prehistoric fish thought to be extinct for 65 million years, was rediscovered alive in Comorian waters in 1938. Number 9. São Tome and Principe, 2 tiny islands sitting right on the equator in the Gulf of Guinea. Population 230,000. Total area 1,001 square kilometers, roughly the size of a large city. This was once the world's largest producer of cocoa. Portuguese colonizers turned the entire country into a sugar and cocoa plantation, using enslaved labor from mainland Africa. At its peak, São Tome produced more cocoa than any country on Earth. Today, artisan chocolate from São Tomean beans is sold in luxury stores across Europe for $15 a bar. The farmers who grow those beans earn about $1,000 a year. The islands sit at the intersection of the prime meridian and the equator, one of only 2 places on Earth where you can stand at 0 degrees latitude and 0 degrees longitude over land. A monument marks the exact spot. Despite its obscurity, the country has never had a civil war, a military coup that stuck, or a major conflict. It consistently ranks as one of the most peaceful nations in Africa. Number 8. Kiribati. And no, it's not pronounced Kiribati. It's Kiribati. Kiribati is the only country in the world that spans all 4 hemispheres: north, south, east, and west. Its 33 coral atolls are scattered across 3.5 million square kilometers of Pacific Ocean. That's larger than India, but the total land area? Just 811 square kilometers. You could fit the entire country inside a mid-sized lake. The highest point in the entire nation is just 3 meters above sea level. 3 meters. That makes Kiribati the most vulnerable country on Earth to rising oceans. The country is so remote that getting there requires flying to Fiji first, then catching one of 2 weekly flights. Tourism barely exists. The entire country has fewer hotel rooms than a single resort in Cancun. But Kiribati made global headlines for one audacious move. In 2014, the government purchased 20 square kilometers of land in Fiji, 2,000 kilometers away, as a potential future home for its 120,000 citizens when the islands go underwater. A country buying another country's land as a climate lifeboat. That's never happened before in human history. Number 7. Eswatini. Until 2018, this country was called Swaziland. Then its king, an absolute monarch who already had 15 wives, decided to change the country's name on its 50th independence anniversary. No referendum, no vote, just a royal decree. Eswatini is the last absolute monarchy in Africa. King Mswati III controls the parliament, the judiciary, and the national budget. His personal fortune is estimated at $200 million in a country where 63% of the population lives below the poverty line. Every year, tens of thousands of young women participate in the Umlenga Reed dance, an 8-day cultural ceremony where they dance before the king, who traditionally selects a new wife from the participants. The event draws international controversy, but remains deeply embedded in Swazi culture. The country is completely landlocked, surrounded entirely by South Africa and Mozambique. It has a population of just 1.2 million, roughly the size of a single U.S. suburb. Despite its size, Eswatini has one of the highest HIV rates in the world, approximately 27% of adults, the direct result of limited healthcare infrastructure and cultural practices that were slow to adapt. Number 6. Liechtenstein. This alpine microstate wedged between Switzerland and Austria is just 160 square kilometers, smaller than most national parks. Population, 39,000. But per capita, it's one of the wealthiest places on Earth. Liechtenstein has more registered companies than it has citizens. Over 75,000 holding companies are domiciled here, nearly twice the population. That makes it one of the world's most concentrated financial centers, rivaling Luxembourg and the Cayman Islands. The country is one of only 2 double landlocked nations in the world, meaning it's landlocked by countries that are themselves landlocked. The other is Uzbekistan. Liechtenstein has no airport, no highway, and no army. The last time it went to war was 1866, when it sent 80 soldiers to fight alongside Austria. All 80 came back, plus one extra person they befriended along the way. The ruling prince lives in a medieval castle overlooking the capital, Vaduz. His family's art collection, including works by Rubens and Van Dyck, is worth more than the country's entire GDP. And here's the quirk that makes Liechtenstein truly unique. You can rent the entire country for $70,000 a night. Airbnb once offered it as a listing. Number 5. Tuvalu. Tuvalu is disappearing. Not metaphorically, literally. The country's highest point is 4.6 meters above sea level, and the ocean is rising around it at 1.5 times the global average. 9 tiny atolls, 12,000 people, 26 square kilometers of land. By 2050, most projections say Tuvalu will be underwater. The country is already building a digital replica of itself in the metaverse, so that when the land vanishes, the nation can continue to exist virtually. But Tuvalu has one unexpected revenue stream that keeps it afloat, literally and financially. The country's internet domain is .tv, and every time a streaming platform, broadcaster, or gamer registers a .tv domain, Tuvalu gets paid. The .tv licensing deal brings in roughly $5 million a year, about 8% of the country's GDP. Australia signed the Phalappili Union Treaty, allowing 280 Tuvaluans per year to resettle permanently, the first climate migration agreement in history. The entire country has one hospital, no traffic lights, and one paved road. The main recreational activity on the capital atoll? Sitting on the runway of the airport when no planes are scheduled, because it doubles as a public gathering space. Number 4. Palau. 340 islands. Population, 18,000. And the most progressive marine conservation laws on the planet. In 2015, Palau created the Palau National Marine Sanctuary, banning all commercial fishing and mining across 500,000 square kilometers of ocean. That's an area larger than California. It was the largest percentage of a country's waters ever fully protected. Every visitor to Palau must sign the Palau Pledge, a commitment stamped directly into their passport, promising to protect the islands for future generations. It's the world's first immigration stamp that's also an environmental contract. Palau is home to Jellyfish Lake, a marine lake containing millions of golden jellyfish that have evolved without stingers. Swimming among them is one of the most surreal experiences on Earth, and it exists nowhere else. The country uses the US dollar, has no military, and relies on the United States for defense under a compact of free association. Palauan citizens can live and work in the US without a visa. Despite its tiny population, Palau has one of the highest marine biodiversity densities in the world, over 1,300 species of fish and 700 species of coral, more than the entire Caribbean combined. Number 3. San Marino, the world's oldest surviving republic. Founded in the year 301, over 700 years before England existed as a unified country, San Marino has maintained continuous sovereignty for 1,725 years. The entire country sits on top of Mount Titano in northeastern Italy. It's completely surrounded by Italy on all sides, but has never been part of it. Not during the Roman Empire, not during the Italian unification, not during either World War. Population, 34,000. Area, 61 square kilometers. But San Marino has one of the highest car ownership rates in the world, 1.6 vehicles per citizen. There are literally more cars than people. The country has no national debt. Its economy runs on tourism, banking, and the sale of postage stamps, which account for a significant portion of government revenue. Stamp collectors worldwide keep San Marino's treasury funded. Napoleon offered to expand San Marino's territory during his Italian campaign. The Republic refused, preferring to remain small. That decision arguably saved them. Every country Napoleon expanded eventually lost that territory. San Marino also has the smallest military in the world that has never been part of a larger alliance. Just 80 active duty soldiers and a ceremonial guard. They haven't fought a war since 1463. Number 2. Nauru, the smallest republic in the world, 21 square kilometers. You can drive around the entire country in 20 minutes. Population, 12,500. But Nauru's story is one of the most dramatic rise and fall narratives in modern history. In the 1970s and 80s, Nauru was one of the richest countries on Earth per capita, wealthier than Saudi Arabia, wealthier than the United States. The source? Bird droppings. Millions of years of seabird guano had created massive phosphate deposits on the island. Mining companies stripped the surface, exporting the phosphate as fertilizer to farms worldwide. Money flooded in. Every citizen got a share. Nauruans bought Lamborghinis, flew to Australia for dinner, and the government invested in London real estate and a failed musical production in London's West End. Then the phosphate ran out. By the early 2000s, 80% of the island's surface had been mined into a moonscape of jagged limestone pinnacles. The remaining land was too damaged to farm. Over 90% of food now has to be imported. Today, Nauru has the highest obesity rate on Earth. 94% of residents are overweight, 72% are obese, and over 40% have type 2 diabetes. The country went from the richest per capita to one of the poorest in a single generation. Number 1. Pitcairn Islands. Population, approximately 50 people. Not 50,000. Not 5,000. 50. That makes Pitcairn the least populated jurisdiction on Earth. The story begins in 1789, when 9 British sailors mutinied aboard HMS Bounty, seized the ship from Captain Bligh, and sailed to this volcanic rock in the middle of the South Pacific, 2,170 kilometers from the nearest inhabited island. They burned the ship to avoid detection and settled with 12 Tahitian women. Today, nearly every resident is a direct descendant of those original mutineers. There are only 4 family surnames on the entire island. The capital, Adamstown, is the smallest capital in the world, a single dirt road and a handful of buildings. There is no airport. The only way to reach Pitcairn is by boat from Mangariva, a 32-hour journey across open ocean. Supply ships come roughly every 3 months. There are no hotels, no restaurants, and no regular internet. The island generates electricity from diesel generators and solar panels. Healthcare comes from a single resident nurse. For anything serious, patients must be evacuated by sea. And yet, Pitcairn has its own constitution, its own stamps, and its own .pn internet domain. The British government maintains it as an overseas territory and funds most of the island's infrastructure. 50 people, a 232-year-old mutiny story, and the most isolated community on the planet. That's Pitcairn. Every country on this list shares one thing, a story the world doesn't know. A nation that sold its own surface for fertilizer. An island chain buying land in another country as a lifeboat. A republic that turned down Napoleon. A country you can rent for a night. 6 of these 10 countries have populations under 40,000. For our Pacific Island nations facing existential threats from rising seas. And 3 have economies dependent on something bizarre: bird droppings, a 2-letter domain name, or postage stamps. The world has 195 countries. Most people can name about 30. These are the stories hiding in the other 165. Which of these countries shocked you the most? Would you visit any of them? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to see which countries treat foreigners better than their own citizens, that video is right here.